Welcome to the CEN show, where the people's voice can be heard. The CommunityEducationNetwork.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. In your investigative or spare time, visit the website to participate in the forum. I am your host, Raski Mascani. Tonight's topic is thought, voice, action, and change. Our guest for this evening is Queen EMC. I met Queen EMC in 1992 when I was working for the Boys and Girls Club in Long Beach. And I worked with her daughter. She was a member of the club at age 5. When I began teaching at Compton High in 1996, the same daughter became my student. And then a few years after that, I transferred to Centennial High School in 2007. 6 years after that, I became a teacher of her daughter's daughter. So I actually taught her daughter and her her granddaughter at the time. And then after that, a few years after that, I became her other daughter's teacher. And then I think one summer I was her son's summer school teacher. So basically, I done taught about 4 of her children, and it was a pretty good experience. So I've been knowing her throughout these years, and we had a couple of business ventures together, and it was a pretty good interaction, a good person to speak with on a consistent basis. So now uh, we collaborated, and we're going to bring her on as one of the members of our CEN team, and she's going to have her own podcast. So welcome to the CEN family, Queen EMC. How are you doing this evening? And can you tell us more about yourself?
Well, hello, and thank you for having me and welcome me to your CEN team. Uh, my name is Queen EMC, and thank you once again, Raski Muscani, and all praises to the Most High for allowing me to be able to be here today, to be able to interview or be a part of your podcast. And about myself, you pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much covered it. Thank you.
So this evening, folks, I'm going to ask Queen EMC about 3 questions, and then she wanted the audience to also answer the question right after she answers it. So it'll be good if Professor Amin Ra can chime in, Brother Mashinda, and I see one of my students on here. And if you could join in after we, have Queen EMC answer the question, you can also answer it, and then we'll go from there. So let's go with the first question. This website takes the position that 1, the human condition is in need of progressive change, and 2, people of color and in general are negatively affected by a system that's dominated and controlled by a few individuals worldwide. What can you do as an individual to affect positive change to improve the conditions of people in your environment?
Wow. Okay. Well, for starters, I can basically just focus on how can I make a change within the environment, just dealing with myself, um, and those that are in my inner circle, and within hopes of it being a domino effect within the environment, starting with one person, one family, city to city, state to state, nationwide. So I can just be an example. And in regards to doing so, you must have thoughts starting. Everything always starts out with a thought. That's the reason why you mentioned thought, voice, action, and change.
Yeah.
Well, with those thoughts, you have to have thoughts of a righteous individual. As a righteous individual, to uphold the vision of that thought with honesty and integrity, seeking a positive outcome, no matter what the situation is within your environment. Providing that we must bring about a structuring, a positive structuring in place with the strategic plan that will bring about change, even though we may or may not be surrounded or living in a dysfunctional environment.
Okay. Okay. Professor Amin Ra?
Yeah, appreciate what's been asked, if I understand it correctly, and really appreciate Queen EMC's response, and appreciate the question. It's a challenging question when you say, what can you do to deal with a global issue, as you said, with regards to how you see the institutions and the people that are exploiting, discriminating, and dehumanizing people of color or Black people. One thing we need to do is study, and you study the problem so that you have a clear understanding of what they are doing, if you want to stop them or if you want to get around them. The purpose of a tax attorney is to get you around paying taxes. The purpose of a true warrior and revolutionary is to teach you how to function behind enemy's lines and not become a victim and not become paralyzed to participating in the mental, spiritual, and physical liberation of yourself, your family, your neighborhood, and in the community. So study is very important to study those that are causing the problems and study those that have been fighting against the problem and those that have been successful in fighting the problems. Even if it's an individual issue of procrastination and confusion or just feeling depressed or something like that, how did they get others involved and get people motivated? One of the biggest challenges of a teacher is to teach people that don't want to learn to want to learn. And one of the biggest challenge of Black people is to get people involved who don't want to be involved in the struggle for social justice and human development. So I think study is very important. Having a vision of not only how it is, I think it was a beautiful sister, Dorothy Heights, who was head of the National Association of Negro Women, that once said when she was talking to some rappers and that said that they were rapping about how it is. That's why they say the things they say, because that's their reality. And that's how they saw the world. And that's why they rap and use the various languages and the various issues that they rapped about from the streets and from their personal experiences or how they see the world. She said, but what about how the world ought to be? Can you rap about how it ought to be? So we should always be working toward, as Queen EMC said, an ethical, principle, moral vision with regards to trying to solve the problem in those terms. You don't solve the problem by being a problem yourself. And so your ability to be ethical and moral as a leader and as an example is very important. Because you don't want to sell people false dreams and their sandwiches. So it's that's the way I see it, the importance of education and study, and then putting what you learn to work with yourself and your transformation or evolution, and your ability to instill it in your children, and then your ability to influence others by the way you behave and by the way you exemplify yourself as an example and prepare yourself to be an example with a mission to have a worldview, but it begins with you. You know, like we always say, you don't want the world to change you. You want to change the world. And you want the world to be like you as far as your treatment and your ethics, your morals, and your practice, and your way of exemplifying justice. So that's what I would say.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, Brother Mashinda, you want to chime in?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, okay. Can you pose that question again?
Okay, it's a little long-winded, but I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Website takes the position that one, the human condition is in need of progressive change, and two, people of color and in general are negatively affected by a system that's dominated and controlled by a few individuals worldwide. What can you do as an individual to affect positive change to improve the conditions of people in your environment?
Okay, that wasn't too bad. So want to thank you for allowing me to be on the cast tonight. Want to thank the sister for showing up and giving her perspective, and Dr. Ra and everyone else that's on the podcast tonight. You know, uh, I'm not in disagreement with anything I've heard. You know, it's all a perspective, and it's pretty much. I think it's it's dead on it in terms of education and so forth. You know, but one thing, personally, in my walk of life and what I've been trying to accomplish and what I continue to try to do is try to find a way to communicate with people who I feel might be discouraged by the question that you pose in terms of the power structure and things like some folks have given up and or their mind is frozen in time where it's they're not being effective because of the fact that they don't have the know-how, or the energy, or they just don't know where to start, what to do. And so part of my job is to, like I say, to enhance the communication aspect, So an example of, going through, like I say, kids that are coming up, working with kids, working with adults, in my path of life, I found that I'm more focused on the younger generation at the moment, although I deal with some older folks in my employment. But in terms of trying to, get the younger folks to kind of unfreeze their minds or catch them before their mind becomes frozen. How about that? In terms of, just obtaining or taking on a way of life that's going to be destructive and not going to be beneficial for them or anybody else. And so I like to, one aspect is the economics. We live in a global world, a global society. Back in 1980, I took a class where one of my instructors, one of my professors was talking about globalization. I took a class called Our Global Future. And basically he was talking about how the world, was going to become globalized. This was in 1980. It was already in motion. But at the time, if you go back in time, it was, from that point up until now, all these multinational corporations, things like that, a lot of world dominance by, like you say, a few people. And so how do we get our market share? How do we bring something to the table? How do we get involved? And it starts in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and things like that, in our schools. And so, but personally, I'm just having conversations with individuals at this point in my life. How can I contribute? Opening up communication, how to become self-sufficient, how to get involved, economically. You don't have to go work for somebody else. You can start your own business. But there's a way to do those things. It's not, everybody want to do, oh, I'll do a business, but just basically forming a strategy, like the sister said, a strategic plan, and but obtain, and then like Dr. Ross said, you got to educate yourself on, have the knowledge base and the skill sets in order to make it to those points. So, like I say, I can just, I'm, a spokesperson, a tutor, a mentor, a teacher, trying to point them in that direction, and trying to, at the same time, I'm just talking out loud. I'm reminding myself that I got the rest of my life to live and I got to stay on point. And so, not asking anybody to follow me. I'm just trying to show you a few nuggets and, and try to keep a line of communication, not just with those who want to learn, but those who, don't have no interest, and to try to, like say, get them involved, so communication, is my word for the night.
Okay. Sister Marcia, welcome. Did you want to answer that question?
Well, every time I heard someone speak, I had a different view of the angle I wanted to go with the question.
Okay.
But to answer it, I think I'm gonna just say it starts with you. Like being a role model is really important. And it's really important to whatever population that you're trying to serve. Whose attention are you trying to get to give whatever information to? Or, who are you trying to help? Who are you trying to reach? So depending on the culture, how he was talking about the youth, they communicate very different from when I grew up. And I'm not that much older than them. But every generation communicates differently. So I feel like it's just so many different components and levels to it. So if I was to give you an answer, we'll be here till in the morning. So I'm gonna just sit back and listen.
Okay, so we got more questions, and you know, you can decline if you like, but we want to kind of get everybody's view on this. And you reminded me of my I have my daughter on here, and she was talking about the gap between, you know, her generation and mine. And we were having that similar conversation. And if you go back in the archives or on YouTube, you can listen to that. And it was interesting. And then I spoke with a young brother that has a clothing shop in Los Angeles here on it's on Western in Florence. And when I introduced myself to him and I told him that, you know, I will promote his business on my website. And then I told him we had a podcast, and he talked about the gap. You know, he said, how do you reach the young folks, you know, with what you're trying to, the messages you're trying to convey? So I clearly understand where you're coming from, Marcia.
And I wouldn't necessarily say it's a gap or
Okay.
because when you say gap, you think of disconnection.
Okay.
And in the world we live in today, everybody's connected all over the world. So it's not a gap. It's giving that era what they need to communicate. It's just like in a relationship. Some people communicate when you buy them something, they're like, oh, he loved me, he bought me this purse. Well, for somebody else to show you love them, they might need you to spend time with them. And then the next person, they need affirmation. So they might need you to tell them they love them. So with this generation, to reach them, how do we get their attention when their heads are down all the time in their phones? A podcast or a Zoom with a specific time is not good for them because they don't work on schedules. This is an age where people going to school for degrees and stuff on their time while they're driving to work, different things, doing it when they want to. So we already know if we want to reach the younger generation, put in a time on it, it's not probably going to help them. You have to record it, put it on social media, um, put it when it's available for them so that when they bored, they can watch it 2 weeks later. I don't know, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a gap. I just want to say we need to step back and reflect on what they need versus what I need. You know, because I could do stuff the old school or the new school. But the new school people could only do the new school and not the old school. So the only reason why I understand, because I'm like in the middle of both of the worlds. I'm that line of demarcation on both sides. You know.
Well, I have a comment about that, but for the sake of time, we're gonna move on. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome the two other people that joined us. I would like for you guys to chime in on this next question at the Queen EMC answers it, if you like. Okay. Okay. Here's the second question. And Brother California, you're gonna have to let me know if you want to chime in. Okay. So here's the second question. When I drive around the county of Los Angeles, I see many homeless camps. What can be done to help the homeless population?
Wow. Okay. What can be done to help the homeless population?
Just some ideas.
Well, once again, we have that cycle that we're in. And that cycle for the individuals being in homelessness, it's very broad. You have to break the cycle, and you have to find out why that individual end up in homelessness. Many people, especially people of color, I'm speaking on color because I am a Black woman, and There's homeless people of all races, colors, but basically focusing on blacks. As far as myself, people of color have been deprived, set back, kept back, left back, robbed and stripped. And some individuals have become complacent with being homeless. They have to want to make that change. And it really saddens me to see so much homelessness in America with all the wealth that's here. For starters, dealing with homelessness, it's an individual thing. You have to know the individual's needs in order to be able to assist in any way that you can. But speaking on myself, I do have a strategic plan in place that will focus on homelessness.
Okay, is there any specific part of that plan that just a little snippet of it that you can present to us, or that's for a later date?
It's for a later date, but I can mention it. Well, that's the same thing I mentioned earlier about being deprived. A lot of individuals are being deprived for unemployment, and therefore that leads to homelessness. Or in unemployment, you can't afford to rent or purchase. You can't afford to buy food. Say, for instance, this I was sitting with this young man one day, and it really saddened me because he was homeless. And he was a very educated, handsome young man, and I couldn't understand why he was asking me for change, knowing that I have all these children. And we just kind of briefly spoke. And he said, it's hard being a Black man. And he says, I try to do right, but I'm still kept back, set back, left back. And I end up on the streets. It's like when I do buy a car to transport my family or to make it to work to take care of my family, I'm getting pulled over and they impound my car. Then I'm responsible for relying on public transportation. I end up taking public transportation and getting involved in the situation. Then I end up losing my job. So what can I do if I'm not even given a chance? So when you say how or what can be done to help homeless people, is just by starters, by giving an individual a chance, especially an individual of color. And like I said, some people don't want help.
Yeah, I would say it's a difficult situation, but I know they had programs in place in the 80s to help individuals who were struggling. I know they have programs now, but I'll let some other people chime in on this. So I'm looking at two Paulas. I see Paula McLeod and then Paula McLeo. So I wonder if that's the same person. So Miss Paula, did you want to make a comment about the homelessness and what can be done if you have any suggestions? Okay, I guess she's just listening in.
Hi. The reason that it's two because the laptop isn't. I can't hear.
Okay.
So I'm on my smartphone now.
Okay.
Any comments on the homeless? I'm in property management right now, and what they're doing is, catering to the homeless or trying to house the homeless. For instance, like going down to where they are and maybe passing out some items that'll help them out, and find out, just talk to them and find out where they're coming from, and if we can help them in any way that we can. So, for instance, I know that there's a lot of vets too that are homeless, and so where I work right now, that's what they're doing. They're catering to the vets, homeless. So that's what I can offer right now. To just
Yeah, my daughter.
service. You need to talk to them and find out, if, where they're coming, what their needs are. I know they're homeless, but it's like if we talk to them and they need to also know that people care. People care about them.
Yeah. Okay, brother doctor.
Yeah, you know what? I just looked that up, and there are over 633,000 homeless in the U.S., and there are 13.9 million vacant homes. So there really is no problem. What's the problem then? There's no problem. Problem is you just don't want to help nobody. That's America, man. That's what we are. How can I be proud about myself if I don't see a homeless person? Whites feel good about themselves when they see us. So this is just, this is a United States thing, man. There's a solution, but nobody wants to do it. So what did I tell you, man?
Yeah. Well, I also know that my one of my daughters is a social worker, and they have programs that house people, and there's various things that you could do to become to get a home or get some type of shelter, and it's a challenging situation if you ask me, but I want to hear from other people. So let's go to Professor Amin Ra.
Again, appreciating what's been said, if I understand correctly, and what everyone has said is applicable to the situation, and possibly could solve some of the problems. But homelessness is, if you want to call it homelessness, or displaced people, because for each person that's not in what we consider to be a home, a house, or an apartment, someplace with a shelter, a dormitory, or something like that. There's for each person, like one speaker said, there's probably a story. There are hundreds of groups out there working with the homeless because the city, the county, the state have provided money to study and to try to come up with solutions. They're trying to build temporary aluminum houses along the freeways. I saw one on the news today in Hollywood to try to deal with the homeless camps. And there are different type of homelessness, and they don't see themselves as homelessness. They consider the streets their home. A lot of them don't want to go to missions because there's rules. And some of them say, I like my freedom. You go to a shelter and they say, well, you can't smoke here, you can't drink here. And so they say, hey, look, I can be on the streets and I can do what I want to do. Second, there's a lot of mental illness. And, it's a challenge dealing with trying to service those. I mean, we used to have mental institutions for those that needed help, but it's hard for you to have them put in a mental institution unless the court does it. You as a family member can't say, well, my son or daughter has mental issues, so can I put them in an institution? Unless you go to court and become their caretaker, and then you can try to get help that way. The county jail is the biggest public housing project for many people. Many people that were homeless, they fill up the jails for various petty crimes and doing little stuff, and then they come back out and like they say if you know, it's hard because, you know, they don't have necessarily a mailing address. And you know, some people are looking for their relatives right now that's on the streets to try to help them, and it's hard to find them. I know a lady that's looking for her son for close to 10 years, you know, and she over 10 years, over 20 years, and he's not in none of the morgues, and she, you know, she hears somebody say they seen him over here or seen him over there, and she'd go look. There were 5 or 6 professional basketball players that made millions, and they are homeless. And I mean, they were on championship teams, from basketball, baseball to football. Sometimes people choose, you know, you know, for whatever reason, they get so depressed because they didn't do or lost what they had, and they just say, hey, look, I just would rather get me a tent and just be by myself. And they abandon their kids, they have a place, but they don't want to go there because they're not the person that they were. I mean, there's so many problems. I have a granddaughter that works with providing a place and placing people who have tested positive for COVID-19 that were homeless. And they are getting hotels and putting them in for isolation and trying to get them treated. It's a monumental problem. And I think one of the major solutions is, and what led to a lot of homelessness, is the breakdown of the family institution as a power nuclear family. Whereas the family, you know, do their best to get their kids educated, to teach them how to love themselves and respect themselves, and how to stay as mentally stable as they can by not getting into drugs, alcohol, and or not giving them everything. And then when they can't get what they want, they get depressed and they have a mental lapse. You know, you gotta raise children to be balanced and face a real world that you know, you're gonna have to work, and you can't just expect for things to be given to you all the time. And then when we call it a disease called the wants, and the only cure is to have. And you know, a lot of things lead to individuals participating in street life. And there's many studies that's out there. They even count. They have counts. That's why the person can tell you how many there were in the country and how many there are in LA County, because they go out and they do a projection, and they have people that they hire to count. And they try to, I remember Brother Ted Hayes used to try to say, let's turn the parks into a place where people can come and set up their tents and tent cities, and Santa Monica and over here and over there. And then they come and pick up all the people's stuff and tear down the tent. Communities complain. You know, it's a challenge, and it's not that it's you got people in refugee camps all over the world in poor places, like those that's by the border trying to come over here for asylum. They're living in the streets of Mexico. You got people in Yemen who are getting bombed, and they're living in refugee camps. You got the Palestinians being displaced. So it's a global dynamic for different reasons. But the point is that in order to have rich, sometimes you have to have poor. In order sometimes people to feel good about where they are, they have to see other people that's not doing that good. It's like the man that said, you know, he was upset because he couldn't buy the shoes he wanted, but then he looked around and saw the man with no feet, and then he said, oh, I ain't doing too bad. And Some of us, when we driving down the street and we see people on the bus stop, we thank God we got a car. And we see homeless people, we say, I'm glad I'm not one and I got this. Not that you don't give them $1, $5, $10, or don't pray for them or don't care for them. Just that you're glad you're not there also. It's like being in a gang and one of your partners gets shot and you cry for them, but you also thank God you wasn't the one that got shot. And so, you know, it's a dynamic that, not that you have to live with it. Of course, if this country wanted to get rid of homelessness in 1984 for the Olympics, they took all the homeless people near the Coliseum and took them downtown, picked them up, took them and found places for them because they didn't want the city to look bad for all the tourists coming for the Olympics. If they wanted to really create shelter for the homeless, the problem is that the people that's paying mortgages are getting mad and the people that's paying rent are getting mad. How you gonna find homeless people housing and they don't pay and I gotta pay? And it creates a lot of problems, brother. You know, and people think it's an easy solution, but it's not. So that's about what I have to say.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. Brother Mashenda? Okay, you wanna
Yo,
say something about the homelessness?
well, you know, what I'm listening to, it look like it's pretty much covered, from one end of the spectrum to the other. I just like to say, it's homelessness is major part of the problem by design. It's a design. It's a after effect of failed policies. Policies that are against people. I remember back in the day, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan kind of deregulated and pretty much had an effect on emptying the mental health institutions. A lot of the people that are homeless they have depression. Some of them, result to drug abuse, things like that. And then that's not always the case. Then there's attempts to do away with like Section 8 housing, to cut back on those kind of situations, which contributes to that. Gentrification. There's a lot of things that, banking policies, try to go to the bank to get you a loan, to get you a house or something like that. You redlined, pretty much, left out of the game. And unless you know how to circumvent the game, understand the loopholes, and that comes with knowledge, that comes with understanding. Sometimes you can end up on that end of the spectrum, and we're all subject to that if we don't stay on point and keep abreast of what's going on. It's like what if the stock market crash? What you gonna do? So these folks had crashes in their lives, and so their own crashes, and so like I was hearing, it's an individual situation. Everybody does have a story, and but again, when you have a society. And of course, there's a lot of people that are positive, that are working toward a great cause. And, those folks like that need to be applauded all the time, because the struggle, have to continue. That's why it's a struggle. You have to continue to be a part of positive change, but you take, like Dr. Ra was saying, during those Olympics, and you take downtown New Orleans when they have all those Final Four events, and you're talking like the Super Bowls and things like that. Oh, they actually they'll put them up in places. They'll get them off the street, because it's optics, economics. So the bottom line is, when you're playing with people's money, they have to, they make those kind of adjustments when it's dealing with their money. But at the end of the day, it's like the haves and the have-nots, and the divide. There's a divide, and the divide is it's a growing. It's a big wedge, and it's by design though, because just like people think right now in the current Congress administrations. I'm not pointing the finger one way or the other. I'm just looking at behaviors. How can you be 100% in agreement with something no matter what? And that, like in the Senate, how they just, no matter what, I'm going with this, and I have a problem with that. There's a problem there. So basically there's an agenda, and no matter what, they stack the deck against you. And so therefore, so again, we got to figure out loopholes and ways to try to, affect that change, but as far as an individual that's, homeless, hey, I got a piece of property that I had a homeless person living in it. I went by there one day. The person came outside and they looked, well, because I wasn't living there. It was just a piece of property I had. It was vacant. And but it had a front door with a lock, but they got into the house. They came outside and they looked at me like, who is this pulling up in my driveway? And they realized, they said, wow. And then I told them, I said, what's going on? And I knew the person, but they were homeless. I recognized the person. And they said, oh, my bad. I said, look, I'm not I'm not doing anything with this house at the moment. I said, but when the weather gets better, because it was during the cold months at that. So they were in there just shelter. I told them, look, I have no problem. You just stay where you're at. I said, but I will be doing some renovations. They respected that. And then I would stop by there. I'd bring some food and some things, some clothes, and talk with them and say, hey, what's your next move? So individual conversations, about the next move. What are you going to do? And unfortunately, the brother's in jail now, but but I was kind of working one-on-one where, trying to form some kind of communications and just to, help that one person, Today, went to there's a food bank right in the neighborhood and called them up. They came by, I had a bunch of cans and things that I'd collected, and they came by and picked them up. Then that money goes toward, homeless, goes people without, so again, I'm just kind of, rambling on because of the fact that that's a huge undertaking. It's but when you have a system that's not for it, that doesn't want, that has any interest in changing that, we got to continue. But it's kind of like going to a council meeting or school board meeting. It's like, those things have been diluted, where, there's not people aren't forming, that's showing up in numbers, or they are, it's just that they're up against, the conversation, we're up against a lot, so you have like Black Lives Matter movements, you have different movements and civil rights movements, people are fighting every day, trying to fight for justice, but when you have it's a systemic, situation there that's against, what we talking about, then hey, that's just part of it. So again, I just share my little thoughts, but hey, just keep fighting, and again, strategic plans, like the sister say, hey, there's a lot of them in progress now, so I do what I can, and that's it.
Okay, I wanted to commend you, Brother Mashinda, for helping that brother out for that period of time. That's very commendable of you, man, and shout out to you for that one, brother. Excellent. Okay, let's go to the third question. We live in a patriarchal society, and in male and female relationships, the leader of the family. In many Black households, men are absent some or most of the time. What can be done to improve the structure of the male and female relationships in the Black family? Sister Queen.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, within a relationship, once an individual or two individuals develop a covenant between the two, that covenant should be based under the laws of God. But now we have it where the male is supposed to be the dominant one in the relationship, which more so the female has taken over that role. And in most relationships, because of generational curses, by living in a displaced or dysfunctional family, you think it's normal. So a lot of things are generational. A lot of things are in regards to that individual or the individuals that's in that relationship where they break that covenant. And when you break that, it causes other scenarios or issues within the relationship. And therefore, the first one to go will be the male. Let me see. I lost my train of thought. Whether it be the male or female, one of them always thinks that the grass is greener on the other side. And once they cross that line and they find out it's not, it's no mending or reconciling. And if there is, it's hard to get back or bounce back into a successful relationship. But I'm not gonna play a blame game, but by me being a Black female, I put that on the male because he should be dominant and take his place and structure his relationship accordingly. And we have some relationships where they last forever. So once again, it's up to the individuals on what they would like to receive out of that relationship or build on that relationship.
Okay.
And you have to be honest. You have to be honest with one another. There's no honesty.
So
And
I'm hearing you. So what is something that can be done to change that?
well, that's on the male. He's the dominant one.
So you saying
He
that?
needs to stop. What you say?
Oh, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna give a scenario or an example.
Okay.
I work around predominantly men, and when they address their questions or concerns in regards to their relationship or their marriage, they're always focusing on another individual. Whether it be, well, my wife is kind of overweight, or her hair is too nappy, or she should be a couple of shades lighter. Why come she can't be like this individual? And I'm like, why you just can't accept her as who she is? You know, don't try to change her. That was something that you've seen about her in the beginning of the relationship. What happened? And then therefore he's gone, which leaves an angry Black female. And if they have children, it's going to affect their children. So how can we get that man or male to take that dominant role?
Well, let me talk a little bit about this. Now, you know, when I look at the situation at hand. I go back to systemic, you know, systemic things that has happened to the Black family. And,
Mhm.
you know, we have developed, a lot of us have developed a mentality that kind of reflects our oppressor, if you ask me, where we get confused about what's significant and what's not significant. We develop a personality where we take on, you know, having the mentality of uh, wanting more than one woman. You know, that's one mentality we take on. We don't know what's real and what's not, and it's been through the destruction of the Black family. A lot of men are not in their correct mind, so they don't know exactly what to do. So when it comes to improving the situation, I think you have to deprogram and learn a new way of being, and then you will recognize as a male what to do with a woman in a significant way. You got to know that the family is important. You got to know that what you're trying to find in another woman, you can find it right there at home. It's a matter of coming into a mentality that is in just significant and intelligent. We are brought up to be hounds, to think that having more than one woman is necessary. And it's a lot of mixed information being taught to a lot of men, so they don't know what to do at times. So it's a lot of restructuring that has to go on. But I know that Professor Amara, Brother Mashinda, and I want to hear from Sister Paula, see what she think about that, about the male and female relationship, and what can be done to improve it in the Black family.
Well, first and foremost, God should be the head of the house. Prayer changes things and situations. I'm on a prayer line because the churches are closed for right now. It's a prayer line, and so what I was taught, to pray about everything. If something is not going right with a spouse, you got to pray for that individual, because you can't change grown people. You can't raise a husband and you can't raise a wife. So you're going to need to take them to the Lord in prayer and leave it in a happy. The Lord will take care of that individual. So that's
strong spirituality and guidance.
Because even in the word it says about something being on a man's mind all day. You got to stimulate. You got to keep it busy. It just come up with different things in your relationship and pray together and do things together. Talk. You sit at the dinner table together and talk at night. And if you and if he feels that if you're not the right one for him, then maybe he should just go someplace else. I don't know. Maybe he should, if he's not happy. I don't know. I don't think people should stay together if they're not happy. But if they're willing to work it out, then you're gonna need a God in your life, in your house. You're gonna need to inherit a prayer life if you don't have one, because God keeps it. He keeps everything together. He works everything out for the best. So.
Oh, okay, appreciate that. All right. Okay, I want to go to Brother Doctor. Brother Doctor.
Yeah.
You want to chime in on that?
once again, man, good question. Again, man, you're asking for a solution that's been plaguing us for years. It's plaguing us yesterday, today, and it will be plaguing us tomorrow. So, just have to be happy in that time, man. Try to make it work. It's a good question, man. It's going to be issues. We're never going to get together. You're going to have some positive relationships, some negative. And the way the dominant society is dividing us, we're always going to have issues, man. So there's no solution. We can talk all that good talk and kumbaya, but it's never going to be a solution, man.
Well,
some people good relationships and some bad. It just happens, man. It just happens.
so what do you do? I can kind of say this. You've been in your relationship for well over 20 years.
30.
30. Okay.
30.
Okay. So how do you keep it together? What are some things that you do?
It's going to be bad times, good times, happy times. It just comes down, man, to knowing she has my back and I got her back, man. That's what it comes down to. And that beats all the arguments, all the disagreements, all the different opinions. Because when it comes down, man, we got to throw down. We're going to throw down against an enemy. So that's what, You
guys are a unit then. You recognize that you are a unit and you accept that.
Right.
Okay.
You're gonna have some problems. Just work it out. Doesn't work out. But like I said, you've been together so long, man. You think alike now. You know what the other's thinking, and just I think part of the issue, man, you just gotta be in a relationship for a long time, man. Once you get past that phase, man, when you think alike, act alike, sound alike, you'd be all right. But people don't make it to that stage, man.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I've been in my relationship
definitely a challenge, struggle, but
Queen, did you have another comment about that?
Well, no, it's all about values.
Okay. So I want to go to Professor Amin Ra and Brother Mashinda. So I want them to chime in because I know they've been in long, successful relationships. So we'll go with Mashinda first, and then we go to Professor Amin Ra. If Mashinda want to go on this one, I think he's been having some bandwidth issues. Probably not. Oh, there he is, Brother Mashinda.
Yes, sir.
The male and female relationship. What can make it, better?
What's that?
The structure. What will improve the structure in the Black family?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like you said. I think I agree with Brother Doctor there. That's a serious question there. That's I don't have a golden answer. I know in my relationship, as the male and in my relationship, and my wife, the female, hold on one second. I guess we do. We have our roles that we play, or roles that we choose, roles that that we're we have our strengths and our weaknesses. We know what we know. She has her strong sets. What she does. I do what I do. When it comes to basic things in the household, it's all about teamwork. It starts in the home. What happens outside the home, like you say, there can be chaos outside of the home. the male or the female can leave home and, and come back with chaos, bring back some chaos into the home. So that's you have to be responsible. If I'm going to leave home and go hang out with the fellas, I can't come back home drunk, because we're gonna have a problem in the house, because she doesn't want, she don't want to be married to somebody that's coming home, smashed out, that kind of thing. And I just use that as one little example of like just kind of understanding, pet peeves, those types of things, and just learning each other. Because when you first meet, when I first met my wife, of course, we had an emotion, we had it was a physiological and an emotional exchange at the same time. Things, of course, we'd be lying, males, or females, we see the person first, so it's a physical attraction. But I like to think that throughout my lifetime, it hasn't, I haven't operated on that premise in terms of, that was the most important thing, and, once, in creating a partner or this partnership coming into effect, it grew into a great friendship, and then it grew into a marriage, so it's all what happens. I think it's all about sometimes what happens before you get into a relationship, and a serious relationship, having a friendship, and I like to think that, I've done that throughout my life, in a lot of ways, when I approach females, to try to get to know them and that type of thing. I don't want to sound corny, but, that's the reality of it. It's kind of like having respect, not trying to, sexualize the woman up front, a lot of men are taught that, and I can't say that I didn't go through my phase in terms of, but, I was probably at a very young age when I transitioned out of that mentality, and one of the things that I try to share with the young men that I come in contact with, and older men as well, it's all about respect for the female, showing respect. I had mother, sisters, things like that. That's what made me like, well, we got to have respect for the sisters, that kind of thing. So once you join that union and you go in, and then now you're living together, what makes that strong is that consistency. I wake up in the morning, I give you some real life, real time situations where, I came home from work today. My wife was in there cooking something to eat. And she, don't get me wrong, it's been many, many times where she came home and I was cooking something to eat, that kind of thing. Well, like there's some dishes in there that need to be washed. And so before I go to bed, I already got it in my mind. She's already in there. She's in there watching TV right now, got her computer out, straight up. She's a professional woman, and about to wind down for the day. So I'm gonna go in there and knock them dishes out. So just mentioning very simple things like that, just in the, in the day-to-day operation of the household, sharing things, and I'm not knocking those, there might be guys say, well, no, I ain't gonna wash the dishes, but I'm gonna take out the trash, or I'm going to lift I'm gonna cut the grass or whatever, or I'll just take care of that, get somebody to cut it, whatever. I'm just saying being responsible for certain things, so people organize it how they want to do, because there's no, one size fit all. Everybody, there's different nuances in relationships, but but anyway, like I said, I can go on all night about this, but the bottom line is, knowing who your partner is, you got to have the most high, in effect, drawing down that energy, you got to draw down that energy to, try to keep not only the relationship in check, but yourself in check. Then, of course, the day-to-day, routine of just making sure things happen. You know, we have a lot of activities going on, a lot of different things going on. So just being a responsible individual, a responsible team player, upholding, playing my role. I might be a point guard and she's a shooting guard, or vice versa. It don't matter. We're just trying to get it done. We're trying to win. So, but just keeping that respect in the family. It's the bottom. That's the lowest common denominator. That's it.
Okay, I heard Sister Queen EMC said values. Now, if the male and the female focus on the value of each other, and just the value of a woman, the value of a man, that's another important aspect of having a more cordial and structured relationship. Okay, Professor Amin.
Appreciate Asante for that, Rashkani. Appreciate what's been said, if I understand correctly. It's a very complex issue, male-female relationship. I taught that class for years at Cal State Long Beach, the Black Studies program. We taught Black male-female relationships. I taught the class, the Black family. Then I taught parenting. I taught conflict, domestic violence and conflict resolution at Stop the Violence, Increase the Peace Foundation. There's a lot of literature out about male-female relationships. A lot of books by scholars and social scientists. Dr. Robert Staples is one of the main persons who wrote about Black singles, and he wrote about Black masculinity, and he wrote about the Black family. He taught at Cal State Long Beach part-time once when we first started. Then Nathan and Julia Hare, who wrote the book, The Black Family, An Endangered Species. And they always did lectures and forums on male-female relationships, and they were a couple that was always together and did things together. Then Hakeem Mahadi Bhuti out of the Institute of Positive Education and the publisher of Third World Press, they published a lot of the books that literature on male-female relationships, the Black Books Bulletin magazines, and then you had Sepia, you had Ebony, and Dr. Lerone Bennett, a historian. Then you had Dr. Karenga, who have in-depth seminars and workshops, marry people, and from an Afrocentric perspective of male-female relationships. And Dr. Francis Rose out of New York, who deal with Black womanism and male-female relationships. We have symposiums every year, institute where some of the best minds in the world come and try to deal with issues of male-female relationships. And we find out there's a lot of factors that goes into why there are sometimes challenges for Black males and females to get together. First of all, you're in a racist society, and that sometimes causes us to, as Raskani was saying, to get our model of a relationship from the European and their way. They get divorced sometimes 5 and 6 times when they get tired of each other or whatever, and at the same time, sometimes they kill their wife and bury them out in the forest and be out there with the search party talking about where's Heidi and looking at, hey, Heidi, where are you? And they didn't kill their wife, and so that's a factor. And then there's sexism. This is a sexist society that teaches that women are to be abused, to be misused. That's why you have women rights groups. That's why you had the National Organization of Women, the Women's Movement. You had the Million Women March. You have women activism talking about fair economics, fair play. Then you have capitalism. The disproportionate amount of wealth is controlled by males in this society. And money is power, and power is politics, and politics is and Sheena was saying, and Chinda was saying was, you know, it's nothing but political gang banging. You know, when he was talking about the Senate, you know, the Republicans are red and the Democrats are blue. That's where the Crips get it from. You know, and they go down what they said. Whatever the set say, that's what they do. And so, but the point is that is what the sister say. Well, you know, sometimes you have standards that just exclude people. You know, if you say, well, hey, I want a man or a woman that don't have no police record, never been arrested, or one that don't have a felony, well, you just excluded a lot of people. Some of the felonies we got, we didn't deserve, but you just threw out a whole bunch of men. And you say, well, I want a church going man, a man that put God first. Well, there's a lot of men that have Christian ethics. They just don't go to church and they just don't say that they're Christians. And so some Muslim, what about Muslims? And what about, you know, can agnostic men or men that don't go to church be good husbands and good people? Do that make them a bad person because they don't go to church or they don't pray or something like that, but they take care of their family and they love their wife and they do everything that the Christian man say he gonna do, but he's the one that's messing with the other sister in the choir. So, you know, there'll be a lot of stuff that goes on with ministers and all that, the contradictions. It's people change. You start out one way and then you get older, you change. Your mentality change. Sometimes the change is because you change, and sometimes you just expose the person to who you really are. People are deceitful, they're actors. They exploit the words of love and they know how to woo you and swoop you, both men and women. Then the sexuality has changed. You got the LGBTQ community that's rising as a political force and a force where when you meet each other, you ask them, are you on the down low or sister, do you have a man or a woman? You understand? I mean, things have changed with regard to sexuality. It's more open. You can't go to a movie and take your kids to a movie. You can't watch soap operas about people getting naked and putting sexual suggestions to you and to people. The whole concept of just the standards, the terms. What I've been married close to 40 years, more. Got 6 children and 11 grandchildren, one on the way. And one of the reasons we still together because we want to be. You want to be with somebody, you learn how to don't argue, don't fuss, don't fight. But one of the things that led to us, we had an African wedding, Afrocentric wedding performed by Dr. Karanga, but we got our terms together before, as in Sheena was saying about being friends and getting to know each other, studying and getting to know each other's family, and getting a commitment, you know, to no violence, no cussing at each other, no deceivement, and no hidden agendas, no separate bank accounts, no all of those little things that, you know, it's the little things that break up relationships. And as one scholar said, it's you know, you got young girls that's, you know, you got men that don't want to be married. And because they were raised in a society that they feel that ties them down and keeps them from loving women, not a woman. And that's the difference between loving women and a woman, one woman. The first functional families on this earth were matriarchal. Women ruled these families. Even though you may go with the Adam and Eve story that the woman came out of his rib, but you can find Aboriginal families in Australia, in Africa, and in the deep secluded areas where you find clans where women rule. Women was queens in ancient Africa. and they carried themselves with royalty. Now, my point is that you got certain religions, women can't get in the pulpit. They can't preach. They're Christians. And in the Bible says you're supposed to be subservient to your man. So you are supposed to be quiet. There's a lot of things that contribute to the confusions in the thing. This is why you have to sit and get your terms and talk about how you're going to live together, how you're going to love together, how you're going to work together, how you're going to build together, and you pray and hope that it goes that way. Because you can have a happy relationship today and a broke up relationship tomorrow. No reason. People abandon their children, abandon each other, just take off and just gone. And you say, well, what happened? It's just like you meet somebody and you like them, and then all of a sudden they never call you no more. And then the whole concept of dehumanization and decharacterization, what are you gonna put out first? Your breasts, your hips, your lips, and makeup, your short skirts, your legs? What about your brain and your heart? That's what you want them to love you for. That's why you be envious of women that you think are less attractive than you. They're happily married. You think you're the finest thing on earth, but you can't keep nobody because their attitude, sometimes personality, and sometimes it's not about looks. It's about a fit. At one time, we needed each other. Coming up in the deep South, getting a wife, because you're going to work, because you can find a job, or you had to go out and gather food, or you had to hustle. So you needed a wife. So when you came off that field or whatever, they didn't have birth control when we was coming in through high school. If you got somebody pregnant, your mama made you marry him and take care of the kid. Those values, as the sister pointed out, it's about not valuing each other, having values about life that is instituted in you as a family. How many mothers are raising their children, their sons to be husbands and raising their daughters to be wives? I ain't saying don't tell them go get an education or don't play sports or don't do that, but character-wise, and be looking and what are the criteria that you teach them to gauge a good man and a good woman by. You know, I mean, you know, it's hard. I'm a street brother. I grew up, I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player or a hustler all my life. I never thought I'd get married. That was the last thing on my mind when I was in my senior year in college. See, I didn't get married till I was, you know, later on after I graduated. And it was just confusion. I mean, I came up with Superfly Shaft. All that influenced me. All the brothers on the street was into just consumption, sexual consumption, and women. Yeah, I mean, we come up that way. It was a hustle. I was a player. You know, that's what you call it. I'm just playing. I love you. I'm just playing. You know, but then as you get older and wiser, and you know you're going to get old, and you know you need someone to bring you some water when you get old. You need somebody to live with. Look at this pandemic. And all the people that are living alone. Some of them, their children gone, but if they got children, that's good. They got at least got somebody there. But if they don't have no children, they just live by themselves because they were living by themselves before the pandemic. They didn't know how to get along with other people, and people wanted to be around them. It's how you carry yourself that makes you attractive, not just how you look. Not about your sexual organs or your physique. All that's good. But what is your character? What is your value system? What is your ethics? And what is your commitment to the male-female relationship and family? That's a challenge, but it has to be trained and instituted in you. And many of us model of a relationship as our mothers and fathers, but at the same time, you got a whole lot of people that grew up without a father in the house and sometimes without a mother in the house because of drugs. One of the things that made women leave their children was crack and heroin. There was nothing else that would make a mother leave her children other than that. Leave them and just walk the streets or just become addicted where they neglect them, leave them with their mother or leave them with somebody else or just leave them and never come back. It's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So male-female relationships is something that you work on, as Nchinga was saying. Before you go and give yourself to someone, make sure it's a mutual exchange. It's not just a connection, not just a physical connection, not just a money connection. You know, it's not just somebody just abuse you so much that you beat down and you just scared to leave or just then lost and just take it. And it's not a dependency that you depend on somebody. It got to be balanced. And it got to be ethical, principle, and a commitment. So you study the history of the person. And at the same time, you discuss and try to get as much commitment and understanding out of them. And then check their track record and see if they're able to stand it. But there are great relationships that exist. It's just that it's not enough of them. There was a study by the Census Bureau that 40% of Black women won't even be asked to be married. That was done over 20 years ago, about 25 years ago. That study was done. They're not going to be asked to be married. And you're talking about matriarch, you're talking about a monolithic relationship with just man and woman. Well, Haki said there's 5 categories: the power nuclear family, the male-female relationship. Then there's one of polygamy where the woman chooses that it's okay for you to mess around. Then there's, well, I can't find a good brother here. Let me go and find a foreign brother. You got interracial relationships at an all-time high with regards to race sharing. I'm marrying outside the race because you feel that, hey, I can't find a Black man or a Black woman. Then at the same time, your fantasy of what beautiful is a white man or a white woman. That's your standard. They gotta have long hair, or they gotta be light. Oh, there's so much confusion. But we as a Black people have weathered the storm. There are some great relationships and great families that we can use as examples. I didn't mean to take up so much time, but I taught that class. So.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Yes. So, you know, for the sake of time, we're going to come to a conclusion. But before we end, Sister Queen, I wanted to see if you wanted to make any final comments for this evening.
No, I've learned a lot myself, but this is really nice. And once again, thanks for having me. So everyone be blessed. And once again, it was very informative. All the questions. So I think that's it.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to collaborating with you so we can get your show off the ground and running. And we look. I know I'm gonna be looking forward to your guests and the things that you're gonna be doing. And
Okay.
All right, brother doctor, brother CA, brother Mashinda, is there anything you want to leave us with before we go?
No, good. No, good show, man. Good show.
Brother CA?
Yeah, I like to say it was it was an excellent show. A lot of information I've learned. I know that in a relationship, it takes communication. It has to be a higher purpose than just selves in a relationship. And Dr. Ra, my hat's off to you. That was, you know, it was definitely informative lesson. Know that there are brothers, men that are aware that what it takes to build a healthy relationship between a man and a woman. I was one of those that came up in a broken home. So I know seeing and being told how to, what to do, when to do it, and how to go about it and how to treat a woman is superior in a relationship. But yeah, excellent show. I've been blessed by it. I was told by a man that had been married 50 years. I know he said it jokingly. He said that in his relationship, the woman was always right. And when they couldn't communicate, he retreated to a corner. So, but yeah, I enjoyed the show. I appreciate the forum, and God bless. And there should be a higher purpose. I believe there should be a higher purpose in a male and female relationship rather than self.
Definitely. Appreciate it, brother California. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming. Anything else you want to leave with, brother Mashinda?
Just have a good night. Thank you, everybody. Thank the guests for presentation, Dr. Ra, brother Doctor, brother CA, sister Paula, all you guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Right, appreciate it. Appreciate everybody. Professor Amara, anything, any last words?
No, man. It's been beautiful.
Okay, well, good. All right. As our motto goes, each one teach one. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks, Sister Queen, for doing your thing. Looking forward to working with you. All right.
Likewise.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.